I'd like to welcome you all to another session of tips and tricks, and in this session we're going to take a quick look at model simplification in the form of a shrink wrap substitute. So what does a shrink wrap substitute do? Well, a shrink wrap will take, for example, an assembly of parts and transfer them into one single part that is linked directly to its parent assembly, meaning that if anything changed inside that assembly with regards to size, it will also update the shrink-wrapped part unless the link is broken. However, today we're going to have a look at a shrink-wrap substitute. And what a shrink-wrap substitute allows you to do is create a level of detail representation and assign a shrink-wrapped part to that level of detail. And this aids in simplification of the model, and it also allows you to add this specific level of detail into a top level assembly, simplifying that assembly by reducing the amount of parts that are inside that top level assembly, because some assemblies are extremely large and having a lot of parts may slow down the application, for example, or can be quite hard to open. So let's take a look. I'm just going to make sure that I've got component priority turned on. And this allows me to select literally one of the sub-assemblies that are in this top level assembly. Now, I'm just going to open that very quickly. And we're going to take a look at the amount of parts that are in this sub-assembly. So you'll be able to see that a number of parts have been created and a number of patterns have been utilized again of specific sub-assemblies to create this quite large sub-assembly of 417 parts. So let's take a look at the shrink wrap substitute. So I'm just going to very quickly expand the level of details, and you'll notice that you've got your default levels of details inside that folder. So let's go through the workflow. So I'm going to select the shrink wrap substitute option from the simplification panel on the Assemble tab. The assembly must be saved first, so let's give that a quick save. So I'm going to select shrink wrap substitute. And you'll notice now that we have this dialog box that gives us some options. Now, I could create a shrink wrap of a specific level of detail, but I'm just going to keep these as master because I want to make the shrink wrap substitute of this sub-assembly within inside the realms of the sub-assembly's level of detail. What other options do we have? I can remove parts by size, should I want to. I can also include or exclude specific parts that I don't want to be in my shrink wrap. I'm just going to leave this as default for now and move on to the Features tab. Inside Features, I can remove holes, I can remove pockets, fillets and chamfers. Again, I'm just going to keep these. And finally, the Create tab, which allows me to then make a name for this specific part file that's going to be created in the background and assigned to our level of detail. I also have the option to pick a specific template, whether it's standard or one of the more advanced templates. I also have the bomb structure. I'm just going to keep this as normal for now. I might want to select a style, in which case I'm going to keep this default because I want to keep the solids and be able to see the different solids once it's been transferred into my shrink wrap substitute part. You'll notice for the other settings we have an option to break the link, but I want mine to be linked to its parent model because if any changes are made, they will be adhered to as well in the shrink wrap substitute. So when I'm happy with this, I'm going to select OK. Now this may take a while to process because there were quite a few parts inside that sub-assembly. So let it process now. You'll notice that it'll generate the part, which is done. And it'll then use that part and bring it back to the assembly and create the level of detail. Okay. So you'll now notice that inside our level of detail drop down, we have the substitute level of detail. If I jump back onto master, select yes to save it, you'll then notice that we have 417 parts. If I jump back onto the substitute, and this has dramatically changed now down to 1. So again, I'm going to go onto master and just save it. Now let's have a look at how that can be used inside our top level assembly. So I'm just going to close down that subassembly, and we're going to now take a look at what we've just been working with. So we've had the combustion stage. You'll notice now this top level assembly has 860 parts. Now that's quite a lot of parts. So I'm just going to expand the combustion stage, and you'll notice then that I have access to the representations folder when I have selected modelling inside my assembly. If I jump back to assembly, for example, you can see all of the specific components there and all the relationships between them components. And if I jump onto the modelling, it then takes us back into the modelling view for each of these sub-assemblies and gives me access to the representations folder. So I'm just going to expand that, and I'm then going to select and activate the substitute level of detail. And I just want you to focus your attention on the amount of parts that are inside the assembly. So let me activate it. You'll notice now the parts have halved. So we have 444 parts inside this top level assembly because I'm using this substitute level of detail for one of the specific components that isn't necessarily going to move inside my top level. Again, if I jump back to master and activate it, we can then see that we've got the full 860 parts, as you would expect from that specific top level assembly.